This is Henrietta Lacks, a mother of 5 who grew up working the tobacco fields in Southern Virginia. Henrietta Lacks, who was diagnosed with cervical cancer when she was 30 and died 1 year later in 1951. Henrietta Lacks, whose cells are linked to thousands of scientific studies and medical cures. This is Henrietta Lacks, but for years, science knew her only as HeLa. Removed during a biopsy at Johns Hopkins Hospital and cultured without her permission, HeLa cells rapidly produced in the lab, unlike anything scientists had ever seen. Some estimate that if you stacked all the HeLa cells ever grown on a scale, they would weigh more than 50 million metric tons. Remember, an individual cell weighs next to nothing. Her cells would become one of the most important tools in medicine. Scientists would use them to develop the polio vaccine, cloning, gene mapping, in vitro fertilization, and more. And her cells are still being used today. Anyone who's ever taken a pill stronger than aspirin can probably thank HeLa, Henrietta Lacks.
I had a scientist tell me it is easier to say who have not worked with the HeLa cell versus who's worked with it, because it's been so many people who's done it.
Despite the countless successes and lucrative pharmaceutical industry built around HeLa cells, Henrietta Lacks' family never received any compensation. The family didn't even know about the research until 25 years after Henrietta's death. They became confused and leery of it all. That is, until a grad student named Rebecca Skloot started asking a lot of questions.
And she started just digging. And her curiosity turned into a 10-year journey.
She used to live in this little, looked like a little shack with one window where she lived writing the book throughout that 10-year journey, trying to gather this information and meeting with people. But it was really a hard journey, and she never gave up.
The result was this New York Times bestseller, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. In this special edition of Maryville Talks Books, we meet Henrietta's granddaughter and great-granddaughter, talk about the long journey their now friend Rebecca Skloot took to write this book. That's next on this edition of Maryville Talks Books.
So the first thing I want to kind of delve into is, Veronica, you're becoming a registered nurse.
Yes.
Yes. And you're also a mentor at Johns Hopkins for Dunbar Scholars. And for people who've read the book, you know how Lawrence feels about Johns Hopkins from that book. So I am very curious about some of the conversations that you've had with your grandfather.
When he found out what I wanted to go into, he actually said, "Why not be a lawyer?" He's like, "'Cause you can represent us. I want some money." And he would joke about it. And now at this point, he's a little more open because my grandfather was the oldest. He was 16 when his mom passed. So he actually got to experience what she went through. And he more so tried to black out his childhood, so the book makes him relive it.
Yeah. What about with your relationship with Johns Hopkins and this mentoring program?
Well, everybody knows that Johns Hopkins, when we was growing up, they would say, don't sit on the front steps past dark because Johns Hopkins will snatch you up and do research on you. So my grandfather thinks it's real cool that we're doing things and we're active. He's more so concerned that we're active in the community, but he says, don't go past dark because if they snatch you up, I ain't coming to get you.
Rebecca Skloot, she was persistent, wasn't she? 10 years working on this. And I know in the book she talks about your father, Sonny, saying that she thanked him for seeing the value of this project and being its backbone within the family. I thank him for his honesty, his never-ending optimism, and for believing I could and would write this book. You know, this all started with her just bugging him until he finally would meet up with her. What do you think it was about Rebecca that was different? Was it the constant bugging, or what was it about her?
That's one thing I say. She just didn't give up. She was persistent, and she would sit in a hotel room, and my father would say, okay, I'm coming to pick you up, and she would never hear from him. She would go home and come back and try again, and maybe told, I'll meet you here, and he wouldn't show up. She actually would go to Clover, Virginia on her own and try and speak to our relatives, and they're like, you know, who is this woman coming around asking about Henrietta? So she was really persistent and just did not give up. And eventually, you know, my father made contact, and then she got with Deborah, who was really the main character in this, because my aunt wanted to know about her mother. So once my aunt really got involved with Rebecca, the rest of them just fell in line, because she was like, look, y'all gonna talk to her, and that was it, and they did it.
How glad are you that this book has come out? Has it helped to,
It's helped
heal
our
some of the
entire
wounds?
family, again, because coming up, no one talked about our grandmother. We did not know anything. We just knew my grandmother died of cancer. And you know, we didn't know back then, we were young, cervical cancer, what that meant. But we didn't know, we didn't hear stories about how she liked to cook, and how she liked to go out and dance, and how she liked to wear red fingernail polish. She was real jazzy and would invite people up from Clover and have about 20, 30 people in her house, and she would feed everyone. We didn't hear those type things coming up. So with Rebecca and my Aunt Deborah doing their research, it enabled us to learn things about our grandmother that we never knew. And as Veronica mentioned, with my Uncle Lawrence, who for years was unable to say anything about his mom, he's able now to release some things that he's been holding in because of this book, because of Rebecca and her persistence and not giving up. It's enabled him to actually write his own book. So it definitely has been a win-win. So,
has there ever been an apology or anything official?
There has never been an apology, and I'll tell you why. There's not been an apology because if John Hopkins apologized to us, they're admitting some type of wrongdoing. If they admit that they're wrong, then that's grounds for a lawsuit. And of course, they want to hold on to their coins. I'm not mad, but they haven't apologized. But they've took the back route and do things like have a statue of Henrietta at John Hopkins, Dunbar scholarships in the name of Henrietta Lacks, community awards in the name of Henrietta Lacks. So they'll do a lot of things but apologize.
And how does the family feel about that?
well, I know some people in the family, in the beginning, they were angry and just didn't want to have anything to do with John Hopkins. But there are programs and things that they are doing to give back to the community, our community, their communities that they grew up in. So in some small way, they're starting to let their guards down with them. You know, we don't have any bitter feelings, but we still feel like more could have been done.
And I think it's really interesting. There was a quote from Deborah in the book that she said, "Truth be told, I can't get mad at science because it helped people live, and I'd be a mess without it. But I won't lie, I would like some health insurance so I don't have to pay all that money every month for drugs my mother's cells helped make."
Yes.
So,
And that's how we feel to this day.
Yes. So it's really, and then you think about the fact that these pharmaceutical companies are making all these trillions of dollars off of the HeLa cell. And I mean, they can say back then things were different and statute of limitation, but I think my grandmother and her cells played a significant part in everybody's life in here. Because we were told by scientists that the medicines that they use, even down to your dogs, the medicines that they make for your animal, scientists that's like the gold cell that they start with in any and everything that they use. And medications that they have over the counter, some way down the line, the HeLa cell is a part of that medication, that formula for that.
what is that like then for you? Yeah. What is that like?
I really feel good and I feel proud, and I always say that that same blood is the same blood that's in my body. That's part of my legacy. So it really makes me feel good. So I try not to focus on the negative and be bitter about it. I just try and focus on the good and see what I can do to impact and make it better for my family, our families.
The appreciation of this book is easy to see on the faces of those who've read these pages. Pages that carry so much history, inspiration, and education on the power of the immortal cells of Henrietta Lacks.
I want to just say thank you, because I think the work that you're doing now just to get the word out, all these community forums that you do, I think it's just wonderful. As one of my undergraduate degrees was biology, and one of my best friends actually got to work with HeLa at the NIH, and I just think the advancements of, your grandmother's cells, everything that she's done for society, it's just amazing. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
This is an amazing story. And like so many stories that I've read or heard lately, I never heard of this. I wasn't aware of it. And it's just amazing to me that up until the time that Rebecca wrote this book, we didn't know anything about this.
I want to say thank you, because I believe you're very courageous to tell the story. And these are stories that are needed for us to be able to look at as we go on.